Class 7, Honeycomb, Chapter 1, 3 Questions by Leo Tolstoy. Leo Tolstoy was a Russian novelist regarded as one of the greatest of all time. He is known as a great realistic writer of world literature. His famous works are War and Peace, Anacarino, A Confession, and Resurrection. 3 questions. This story is about a king who has 3 questions and he is seeking answers to them. So let us look what are the 3 questions and how the king got answers to these 3 questions. 3 questions, part 1. The thought came to a certain king that he would never fail if he knew 3 things. These 3 things were: what is the right time to begin something? Which people should he listen to? What is the most important thing for him to do? The king therefore sent messengers throughout his kingdom, promising a large sum of money to anyone who would answer these 3 questions. Many wise men came to the king, but they all answered his questions differently. So now let me explain to you. Once there was a king who thought that to be a successful ruler, he must know the answer of 3 questions. And the questions were, first one is, what is the right time to begin something? That's the first question. And the second one is, which people should he listen to? And the third question is, what is the most important thing for him to do? So these are the 3 questions. And the king sent messengers in all directions to find people who could answer these 3 questions. Many wise men from different parts of the country came to answer these 3 questions. But the problem is that the answer given by all these wise men were all different. Okay. In answer to the first question was, what is the right time to begin something? So for the first question, some of the wise men felt that the king should follow a timetable. That was the solution, first solution given by the wise men to the first question. While there were others who felt that it is not possible to decide the right time for doing something in advance. Okay, and in answer to the first question, some others said that the king needed a council of wise men who would help him act at the proper time. And in answer to the same question, some said in order to decide the right time for doing something, it is necessary to look into the future. And only magicians could do that. Only magicians could look into the future. So they said, king should seek the help of a magician to decide the right time to begin something. So these are the answers given by the wise man to the first question. So let me explain to you once again. The first question was, what is the right time to begin something? And he got lot of answers. First answer was, the king should follow a timetable. And the second answer was that it is not possible to decide the right time for doing something in advance. And the third answer was that the king needed a council of wise men to help him to decide the right time. And the fourth answer was, king need to seek the help of a magician to decide the right time for doing something. So these are the answers given by the wise man for the first question, and all the answers were different from each other. Now let us look the answers to the second question. What was the second question? Which people should he listen to? Which people the king should listen to? And in answer to the second question, some wise men said that the king should follow his counselors, while others thought it was a priest whom the king should listen to. Then there were those who felt that it was a doctor the king should obey, while there were many in favor of soldiers. So in answer to the second question, king got 4 answers. Okay, and the wise men said the king should listen to the counselors. Some others said the king should listen to the priest. Some others said king should listen to his soldiers, and some others said king should listen to his doctor. Now, the third question was, what is the most important thing for him to do? Okay, in answer to this question, King got three answers. Some wise men said, science is the most important thing for the king. Some others said, fighting is the most important thing. And some others said, religious worship is the most important thing. So he got three answers. Some said science is important, some said fighting is important, and some others said religious worship is the most important thing. The king was not satisfied with these answers as they were so different from each other. So he didn't give any reward to anyone, and he thought to seek the advice of a wise hermit who lived in the jungle. So the king decided to visit the wise hermit so that he can get answers to his three questions. But there was one specialty about this hermit. The hermit was a very simple man who lived a very simple life. So the hermit will see only ordinary people. So the king dressed up like a normal man and leaving behind his horse and bodyguard, he went to the hermit's hut. The hermit was a very old man. He was a very simple man. So when the king reached the hermit's hut, he saw the hermit digging the ground in front of his house. The king told that he has come in search of the answers for his three questions, and he repeated the same three questions to the hermit. But the hermit didn't respond to his questions. The hermit was old and weak, and as he worked, he breathed heavily. So the king, seeing the hermit tired, offered his help. The king now started digging the ground. After digging 2 beds, king repeated his questions, but there was no response from the hermit. The king continued digging the ground till evening. In the evening, the king again requested the hermit to answer his questions. But at that moment, someone came running towards the hermit's hut. That was a wounded man. His hands were pressed against his stomach from which the blood was flowing. So there was a wound in his stomach from which he was bleeding. When he reached the king, he fainted and he fell to the ground. And the king and the hermit removed the man's clothing and they found a large wound in his stomach. So what the king did, the king washed the wound and he covered it with his handkerchief. But the blood was still coming out, so he dressed and redressed until at last the bleeding stopped. Now the man felt much better and he asked for some fresh water. Okay, and the king brought some fresh water and gave to him. He drank it, and later the hermit and our king took the man to the hermit's hut. There, the wounded man, fell asleep. The king was very tired and he also fell asleep and slept through the night. In the morning, when the king opened his eyes, he saw the wounded man asking for forgiveness. The man told the king that he had come to take revenge. He had come to kill the king because the king had killed his brother and had taken away all his property. The wounded man also said that he was hiding in the jungle so that he can kill the king on his way home. But the day passed and the man couldn't see the king. So he came out of his hiding place, but he was recognized by the king's bodyguards and they wounded him. The man actually came to kill the king, but the king saved his life, and that is why the wounded man asked king's forgiveness. The wounded man regretted his thoughts of killing the king and promised to be his faithful servant. So the king was pleased to turn his enemy into a friend. He was so happy that now the wounded man was no more his enemy. The king forgave him and promised to give back all his property. Now the wounded man left. The king then went to look for the hermit who was sowing seeds in the beds that they had dug the day before. He requested the hermit for the last time to answer his questions. To this, The hermit replied that the king has already found the answers. But how is that possible? We know that the hermit had not answered his questions. But the hermit is telling the king has already found the answers. Let us look what was the hermit's explanation for this. Hermit is telling that if the king would not have pitied hermit's condition the day before, then the man would have attacked him on his way and he might have lost his life. So, the most important time was when he was digging the bed, and the hermit was the most important man. And what the king did for the hermit was his most important business. The hermit said to the man that the most important time is now, the present time, because it is the only time when we have the power to act. And the most important person is the person you are with at a particular moment. And the most important business is to do that person good. Because we don't know anything about the future. We don't know what will happen in the future. So, my dear students, always live in the present. Don't worry much about your past and future. The present time is important for you. Now is important for you. And the most important person is a person you are with at this particular moment. And the most important thing you have to do is do that person something good. Class 7.